All right, ready to dive into something kind of different today. We're going to explore Adlerian psychology.
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff.
I've been reading up on it, and it really does offer like a whole new perspective compared to, some of the more traditional psychological theories.
Right. It's definitely a more optimistic and empowering approach, I think.
So for anyone who's not familiar with Alfred Adler, can you give us a little background on who he was and what made his ideas so unique?
Sure. Adler was an Austrian physician born in 1876.
Okay, so way back.
Yeah, and he actually started out working with Freud.
Oh, wow. So like right at the beginning of psychoanalysis and all that?
Exactly, but they ended up having some pretty major disagreements about the fundamentals of psychology.
I can imagine they had very different views.
Yeah, so Adler went on to found his own school of thought called individual psychology.
And what's the main gist of individual psychology? What sets it apart from other approaches?
Well, Adler believed that everyone has this innate drive to belong and contribute to something larger than themselves.
Okay, so it's not just about like fixing what's wrong with you, but about finding your place in the world.
Exactly. And he also emphasized the importance of understanding people's current goals and motivations rather than just digging into their past traumas.
So it's more forward-looking than a lot of other therapies.
Right. It's about empowering people to make changes in their lives now.
I like that. So to help us understand Adler's ideas better, we're going to focus on three key concepts: teleology, task separation, and community feeling.
Yeah, those are really at the core of his work.
Let's start with teleology, because honestly, it sounds a bit intimidating.
It's really not that complicated once you get the hang of it. Basically, teleology means that our current behaviors are driven by our present goals, even if those goals are subconscious.
So instead of saying, I'm this way because of what happened to me in the past, Adler would say, I'm behaving this way because I'm trying to achieve something right now.
Precisely. It's like we're always moving towards something, even if we don't realize it.
Can you give us an example of how this plays out in real life?
Sure, let's say someone is constantly procrastinating on a big project.
Oh, I think we've all been there.
Right, so instead of just saying they're lazy or undisciplined, Adler would ask, what goal might this person be unconsciously achieving by procrastinating?
Maybe they're afraid of failure, or maybe they're secretly hoping someone will come along and rescue them.
Exactly, or maybe they get a sense of control from putting things off until the last minute.
So it's not about denying that there might be past experiences that are influencing their behavior.
No, but it's about shifting the focus to what they're currently aiming for.
And once you understand that aim, you can start to change it.
Exactly, and that's where the real power of teleology comes in. It gives us a sense of agency.
Instead of feeling like a victim of our past, we can choose different goals and move towards a different future.
Right. It's really empowering stuff.
Okay, so teleology is all about understanding the purpose behind our current behavior. Now, let's move on to task separation.
This one's all about relationships.
Oh boy, I think we're all going to need some help with this one.
Yeah, relationships can be tricky, but Adler believed that most of our problems stem from interpersonal conflicts.
So not just the big blowouts, but even those little everyday annoyances.
Right, and task separation is about recognizing that we can only control our own actions and reactions, not the actions and reactions of other people.
Easier said than done, right?
hmm
Especially when it comes to the people we're close to.
It definitely takes practice, but the basic idea is to focus on what's in your lane and let other people stay in theirs.
I like that analogy. So it's like drawing boundaries in a relationship.
Exactly. It's about respecting each other's autonomy and not trying to control each other.
Can you give us an example of how task separation might play out in a real-life situation?
Sure, imagine a couple where one person is really into fitness and the other person is not.
Yeah, I can see where this is going.
So the fitness enthusiast might be tempted to nag their partner to work out with them or eat healthier.
And that's where things start to go wrong.
Right, because in that scenario, the fitness enthusiast is trying to control their partner's task.
So what would a healthy approach look like in that situation?
Well, the fitness enthusiast would need to accept that their partner's choices are ultimately up to them.
And that can be hard, especially if you really care about someone and you want what's best for them.
Absolutely, but trying to force your will on someone else almost always backfires.
So instead of nagging, the fitness enthusiast could just focus on their own fitness goals.
Exactly, and maybe invite their partner to join them sometimes, but without any pressure or judgment.
And the partner, in turn, could support their partner's fitness goals without feeling like they have to become a gym rat themselves.
Right, it's about finding a balance between respecting each other's individuality
Hmm.
and supporting each other's growth.
So task separation isn't about being selfish or uncaring.
No, it's actually about creating healthier and more fulfilling relationships.
By letting go of that need to control each other.
Right, and focusing on what we can actually control, which is our own choices and actions.
So we've talked about teleology, which is about understanding our own goals and motivations. And we've talked about task separation, which is about navigating relationships in a healthy way.
And now we're going to dive into community feeling, which is really about finding our place in the world.
Okay, I'm really intrigued by this one. Tell me more.
Well, Adler believed that everyone has this innate desire to belong and contribute to something larger than themselves.
So it's not just about having friends and family. It's about feeling like you're part of something bigger.
Exactly, and he called this feeling Gemeinschaftsgefühl, which is often translated as community feeling or social interest.
So it's like that feeling you get when you're part of a team or a group working towards a common goal.
Yeah, or when you're volunteering your time to help others.
Or even when you're just being a good neighbor or citizen.
Right, it's about recognizing that we're all interconnected and that our actions have an impact on the world around us.
But how do we cultivate this community feel? Like, where do we even begin?
Well, Adler believed that there were 3 key steps.
Okay, let's hear them.
The first step is self-acceptance.
So, like, accepting yourself for who you are, warts and all.
Exactly, because if you don't accept yourself, it's hard to genuinely connect with others.
That makes sense. What's the second step?
Trusting others.
Okay, that one can be tough, especially if you've been hurt in the past.
I know, but Adler believed that extending trust is essential for building strong relationships and feeling like you belong.
So it's not about being naive or gullible. It's about choosing to believe in the good in others.
Right, and allowing yourself to be vulnerable.
Okay, so self-acceptance and trust. What's the third step?
Contributing to the community.
So like volunteering or donating to charity,
It can be those things, but it can also be much simpler.
like just being a good friend or family member. Right?
Exactly, or helping out a neighbor, or even just smiling at a stranger.
So it's about finding ways to make a positive impact on the world around us.
And those contributions don't have to be huge or dramatic.
Even small acts of kindness can make a difference.
Right, and they can also help us feel more connected to our community.
So community feeling isn't just about receiving, it's about giving back.
Precisely. And when we find ways to contribute, we often discover a deeper sense of purpose and meaning in our own lives.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, but we're just getting started.
There's so much more to explore in Adlerian psychology.
Well, stay tuned because in the next part of our deep dive, we'll be talking about another intriguing concept, the courage to be disliked.
Yeah, this one really challenges the way we think about social approval.
We'll be right back after a short break.
Can't wait to dive into that one.
This is going to be good.
It is.
Okay, see you on the other side.
See you there.
Okay, so the courage to be disliked. That's a pretty bold statement.
It is, right. And it kind of goes against everything we're taught growing up.
Yeah, like be nice, make friends, don't rock the boat.
Exactly. We're conditioned to seek approval and avoid conflict.
But Adler's basically saying, hey, sometimes you got to be willing to ruffle some feathers.
In a way, yeah. He believed that true authenticity and freedom often involved the risk of not being liked by everyone.
So it's about letting go of that need to please everybody.
Right, because when we're constantly trying to please others, we end up betraying ourselves.
We lose sight of our own values and goals.
Exactly, and we end up living a life that's not really our own.
So how do we find that courage to be disliked? It sounds kind of scary, to be honest.
I know it can be intimidating. But it's not about being mean or disrespectful.
Okay, so you're not saying we should just go around being jerks to everyone.
No, not at all. It's about recognizing that you can't control how other people perceive you.
And that's okay.
Right, some people are going to like you, some people aren't. It's just the way it is.
But what if those people are like your family or close friends?
That can be tough, for sure.
Because you don't want to lose those relationships.
I get it. But Adler would say that sometimes you have to choose between being true to yourself and maintaining a relationship that's no longer serving you.
So it's about setting boundaries and being willing to walk away if those boundaries aren't respected.
Exactly, and that takes courage.
But what about the people who use this idea of the courage to be disliked as an excuse to be, well, just plain awful?
Yeah, that's definitely a risk. There are always going to be people who distort ideas to justify their own bad behavior.
But that's not what Adler was advocating for.
No, he believed that true courage comes from a place of self-awareness and compassion.
So it's not about being reckless or insensitive,
Right, it's about being thoughtful and deliberate in your actions.
and recognizing that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is to stand up for what you believe in, even if it means being unpopular.
Absolutely, and that can be really empowering.
So to sum it up, the courage to be disliked isn't about being a jerk,
No, it's about living in alignment with your values.
even when it's hard.
And even when it means risking the disapproval of others.
And that brings us to our final Adlerian concept, community feeling.
This is where it all comes together, in a way.
Okay, tell me more about this community feeling thing.
Well, Adler believed that everyone has this innate desire to belong and contribute to something larger than themselves.
Like we're all part of something bigger.
Exactly. He called this feeling Gemeinschaftsgefühl, which is often translated as community feeling or social interest.
So it's that feeling of connection we get when we're part of a group or a team or even just a community.
Right. And it's not just about feeling good, it's about recognizing our interconnectedness.
That we're all in this together.
Exactly. And that our actions have an impact on each other.
But how do we cultivate this community feeling? Like, is it something you're born with, or can you develop it over time?
Adler believed that it's something we can cultivate through our choices and actions.
So it's not just about feeling it, it's about doing something.
Right. He outlined 3 key steps for cultivating community feeling.
Okay, I'm all ears.
The first step is self-acceptance.
We've talked about that before, right?
Yeah. It's about embracing who you are, flaws, and all.
Because if you can't accept yourself, it's hard to accept others,
Exactly. And the second step is trusting others.
which can be a challenge.
Especially in a world where we're constantly bombarded with negativity.
But Adler believed that extending trust is essential for building strong relationships and a sense of belonging. So it's about choosing to see the good in people.
And believing that most people are inherently good.
Okay, so self-acceptance, trust, what's the third step?
Contributing to the community.
So finding ways to give back and make a difference?
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be anything grand or heroic.
Like just helping out a neighbor or volunteering at a local soup kitchen?
Right. Even small acts of kindness can have a ripple effect.
And they can also help us feel more connected to our community. So community feeling isn't just about receiving, it's about giving back.
And when we find ways to contribute, we often discover a deeper sense of purpose and meaning in our own lives.
It's like that saying, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others.
Yeah, I love that quote.
Me too. So we've covered a lot of ground today, from teleology to task separation, to the courage to be disliked, to community feeling.
It's been quite a journey.
And I hope you've all gained some valuable insights from our deep dive into Adlerian psychology. Okay, so we talked about that courage to be disliked. Kind of a tough one to wrap your head around.
It is, yeah.
But now we're going to shift gears a bit to, I don't know, maybe a more positive concept, community feeling.
Yeah, definitely a more warm and fuzzy concept.
So remind us, what exactly is community feeling in this whole Adlerian thing?
Well, Adler, he actually used the German term Gemeinschaftsgefühl, kind of a mouthful.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try that one.
But basically it means, a feeling of belonging, feeling connected to something bigger than yourself.
So it's not just about having, like, your close circle of friends and family.
No, it's broader than that. It's more like recognizing that we're all interconnected,
Like we're all part of the human race and we all have a role to play.
Right, and that we all have a responsibility to contribute to the well-being of, like, the whole community.
Okay, so that makes sense. But how do we actually cultivate this community feeling? How do we make it stronger?
Adler believed there were 3 key steps.
All right, lay them on me.
First one, we've talked about it before, but it's self-acceptance.
So accepting yourself, warts and all.
Yeah, basically. Because if you can't accept yourself, how can you accept others?
Right, that makes sense. What's number 2?
Trusting others.
Okay, that's a big one.
It is, especially these days when there's so much, like, negativity and distrust around.
Not to be skeptical of.
Yeah, but Adler believed that choosing to trust others, even when it's scary, is essential for building those strong connections that we need to feel a sense of belonging.
So it's a bit of a leap of faith?
In a way, yeah. But it's a leap that can lead to something really beautiful.
Okay, so self-acceptance, trust. What's the third step?
Contributing to the community.
Okay, so like volunteering, donating to charity.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it.
But it sounds like it can be more than that.
It can be. It can be just as simple as, like, helping out a neighbor who's struggling or listening to a friend who's having a hard time.
So it's those everyday acts of kindness too.
Exactly, those little things that make a big difference.
So community feeling is about giving back. not just receiving.
Right. It's a two-way street. You give to the community, and the community gives back to you.
And through that exchange, we strengthen those bonds of connection and build a stronger, healthier society.
Precisely. And, when we find ways to contribute, it gives us a sense of purpose, too.
It's like that saying, the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away.
Yeah, I love that.
I do too. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From teleology to task separation, to the courage to be disliked, to community feeling.
We've explored some pretty deep stuff.
We have. And I hope our listeners have found this deep dive into Adlerian psychology insightful, maybe even inspiring.
Me too. It's really fascinating stuff, and I think it has a lot to offer us even today.
And if you're interested in learning more, there are tons of great resources out there, books, articles, websites.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out.
So until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
See y'all next time.